All right, thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Jennifer Cook. I'm with Colorado State University Extension in Gilpin County. And I'm happy to have Susan Panjabi with me this evening. She's a botanist with the Colorado Natural Heritage Program at Colorado State University. Thanks for joining us, Susan. I'd also like to thank a few people who helped make this presentation possible. Olivia Clark, who's the Clear Creek Extension Director. Chris Kraus, oh, sorry, no, Olivia is in Grand County Extension Director. Chris Kraus is in Clear Creek, the extension there. And then Darren Davidson is Boulder County Extension. So thanks for helping make this possible. Without further ado, actually, before we get started, just making sure you know that Susan will have time to take questions at the end of the presentation, but so just hold your questions until then. You can use the chat box to ask your questions along the way so you don't forget, and then we'll just address them all, or as many as we can at the end. All right, thanks everyone for joining us, and Susan, take it away.
Thanks, Jennifer. I really appreciate you inviting me to speak with everyone tonight about the Rollins Pass Flora and Fauna. I'm a botanist with the Colorado Natural Heritage Program at CSU, and I've spent very little time at Rollins Pass, but I've worked with a bunch of people who have spent time up there, and I've also spent some time learning myself, looking through the data that are available about the flora and fauna of this important area. So what I'd like to do tonight is give you an overview of the Colorado Natural Heritage Program and how we document the biological significance of an area, such as Rollins Pass. We'll take a look at the Rollins Pass plants, animals, and plant communities, a lot of photos of Rollins Pass, and then briefly touch on the biodiversity conservation research needs of the area. So the Colorado Natural Heritage Program is one of the a program located at Colorado State University. We are in the Warner College of Natural Resources, one of the 5 departments located in that college. And we're also part of an international network of heritage programs called NatureServe, a network connecting science with conservation. So the Colorado Natural Heritage Program is just one of the programs in the NatureServe network. And all of the states of the United States have a similar program, and all the Canadian provinces and a lot of the Latin American countries. So the map, all the areas in green have heritage programs and share the similar methods that I'll be talking about tonight. So at CSU, I work with a team of botanists and ecologists, zoologists, database managers, GIS coordinators, and conservation planners. And we all work together on interdisciplinary projects or species-specific projects or area-specific projects. To really, what we do is we specialize in the identifying the location and status of rare and imperiled plants, animals, and plant communities. I'm just trying to move this top bar out of my way here. Let's see if I can do it. So when I say plant communities, I'm talking about a combination of plant species that are found in a repeating pattern on the landscape. So like everyone is probably familiar with spruce fir forests or pinyon juniper woodlands, that sort of thing. Well, we identify hundreds of plant communities that are characterized by a combination of plant species occurring in a repeating pattern. And we document information on all plants, animals, and plant communities in Colorado to try to identify which of these elements of biodiversity are important in terms of conservation. Which of these elements of biodiversity are rare or imperiled or otherwise significant, and then document the specific location of those elements that we're tracking. So I suddenly can't seem to advance the slide. There we go. I don't know why that happened. Well, we work to track these plants, animals, and plant communities with a lot of different partners, and our partners are really key to our success. This is not meant to be an exhaustive slide of all the logos of all the partners we work with, but I just wanted to give you an idea that we work with federal agencies, state agencies, land trusts, universities, private nonprofits, and really any other organization that is also out looking at plants, animals, and plant communities around Colorado. And we try to work with them to understand what data are available on these species of concern. Our approach is field-based. So either our team of scientists is getting out in the field, or we're working with others, whether they're with Forest Service or Colorado Parks and Wildlife or Land Trust, whoever is out getting the information. And we really work to serve as a central repository of information on Colorado's animals, plants, and natural communities. So this map shows where we've documented plants, animals, and plant communities all across Colorado, the animals in blue, the natural communities in red, and the plants in green. And as you can imagine, then having this information, we can also coordinate with adjacent states and all across the full area of the NatureServe network to understand what we have in Colorado from a global perspective. And also we can zoom in to any area, whether it's a county or a national park or a state park or even smaller areas. And that's what we're going to do tonight, looking at the Rollins Pass area. And as I said, we look at all species and communities, but we try to understand which are significant on a global and a state level. And those plants and animals are the ones that we track the specific locations for. So our global ranks, each of the plants, animals, and plant communities are assigned a global rank that shows the degree of rarity on a global scale, and the state ranks show the degree of rarity on a state scale. So if a species is ranked G1, it's considered critically imperiled on a global level. If it's ranked S1, then it is critically imperiled just here in Colorado or whatever state you're looking at. Typically, our critically imperiled taxa are known from just 5 or fewer locations, either globally or in the state. The 2s are the ones that are known from just 20 or fewer, 5 to 20 locations, either globally or in the state. The 3s are between 20 and 100, but still considered to be rare or vulnerable to extinction or extirpation. If it's a state level, that would be vulnerable to extirpation. It might be vulnerable just in Colorado, but we do have species that we consider to be vulnerable to extinction. And then the 4s and the 5s are the ones that are considered to be secure. So to give you an example, This is a plant species called parachute penstemon, and it's critically imperiled worldwide, range-wide. This is a G1S1 plant species. So here's a map of Colorado with the Continental Divide going down the middle and the county boundaries showing, and the green dots are, this shows the global distribution of that plant species. So you can imagine how this would end up being one of our G1S1 species. And this is the habitat for that plant. A lot of these rare plants, especially if they're G1S1, they're known from very narrow habitat. And this one is just found at the top of these cliff edges over on the Rome Plateau. Another example is the boreal owl. Jennifer, can I just interject for a minute? I cannot get rid of this bar that's at the top of my screen, and it's blocking what I want to see.
Is there a minimize? Is there a minimize button?
I'm not
on the bar?
seeing it. I'm not
sure.
seeing it. Well, I'll just try to make do.
Can you move it? Can you grab it and move it?
I can move it around, but okay. I think hopefully it'll be okay. I might have to move it around a bit, but anyway, so the boreal owl is another example of how we rank. This one is a G5S2. So the boreal owl is secure globally, but it is considered to be imperiled here in Colorado. I show again a distribution map for this species, and it's known in quite a few locations, but a lot of those are historically known with a minimal amount of data. So we consider this to be a state imperiled species. And this is a species that is known from the Rollins Pass area. So that it can be maybe a nice segue to looking more closely just at Rollins Pass. My slide's not advancing. Let's see. Okay. So the area we're going to look at more closely to see what we have mapped in the way of the plants, animals, and plant communities is Rollins Pass. And this is located, this area in red, the purple is the Continental Divide, it's the state of Colorado. Here's Denver, this is Boulder County and Grand County, Gilpin County, and Clear Creek. And looking more closely, I know you won't be able to read everything on this map here, but I just wanted to give you an idea of the area. This is what we did to identify this study area is the Rollins Pass Road runs through the middle of this polygon. And it goes from Rollinsville, which is just south of Nederland, in Boulder County here. But this is actually Gilpin County here, Rollinsville. And it goes on over, the pass is right here where the three counties meet down to the Winter Park area. So this is Boulder County, Grand County, all to the west of the Continental Divide, and then Gilpin County, and this is Clear Creek County down in this area. So this is about an 18-mile by roughly 6-mile area, and basically encompassing that Rollins Pass Road. This area has quite a complex land ownership and land management pattern. It includes a lot of land managed by the Arapaho and Roosevelt National Forests. It includes the parts of the Indian Peaks and James Peaks wilderness areas. And there are also quite a lot of private inholdings in this area. There's also a wide elevation range, with the low elevations around Rollinsville and Winter Park going down to about 9,000 feet above sea level, and up to the highest elevations just about 12,000 feet above sea level. And the pass itself is quite high, reaching up to 11,676 feet. So last week, I hope a lot of you were able to catch the presentation that Dr. Jason LaBelle and Travis Wright provided for us, where they talked about the cultural and anthropological significance of this area. If you missed that, I highly recommend you checking out the recorded presentation. It's fascinating, the cultural and anthropological history of this area. But tonight we're going to focus on the biological significance of this area, the plants and animals. So this area supports a wide diversity of plant communities. At the lower elevations, there are mixed conifer forests, riparian areas, aspen woodlands, willow dominated wetlands, the spruce fir forests and subalpine meadows, and again the willow dominated wetlands, and all the way up and through the alpine, the subalpine here in this photo, we're getting to where the spruce fir are much more sparse and dwarfed, and reaching up to above tree level, where there are beautiful rock outcrops and alpine meadows, snow fields, alpine lakes. And of course, all these areas support just a wide range of diversity, with beautiful wildflowers, birds, butterflies, all kinds of mammals, squirrels and chipmunks and pika and foxes and elk and deer. And it's important for all those elements of biodiversity as well. But what we're going to focus on are those elements that are considered to be critical, either imperiled at a state level or at a global level. I did want to mention that Rollins Pass is only passable if you are in a four-wheel drive, high clearance vehicle in the summertime. So don't just think, oh, I found a new way to get to Boulder or a new way to get up to Winter Park. It's really, it's a great way to get into the high country, but it's not a pass that is open for going over on this road. It's more of a historical road. So I was really pleasantly surprised how many records we had for this area. So again, the gray boundary is this Rollins Pass study area, and the red are amphibians that we have documented, and I'll go into a lot more detail on all of this, but the amphibians are boreal toads and northern leopard frog. The birds are in purple, and that's in this case just the boreal owl. The fish here are the greenback and Colorado River cutthroat trout. The dark green are plant communities here and there. The blue are, whoops, I wasn't going to jump to that just yet. The blue are, the dark blue are insects. And so you can see here as well. And then orange are mollusks. mollusks, and the light green are vascular plant species, the wildflower and wildflowers. We don't have any non-vascular plants or reptiles documented in this area. And I just wanted to point out that it might look like, oh, that this is a large area for this insect, this butterfly species, but what this big circle reflects is that we don't know exactly where that butterfly was documented. So the way it's shown on the map is just by a broader circle, indicating that we know that it was somewhere in this area, but not exactly where. Whereas the plant communities that are in the dark green, we have much more precise data on the specific location of those plant communities. So that's why there's a size difference with those. And I wanted to say also that these records for the plants and animals and communities here date back to 1903. So there's a lot of historical data that we've compiled, again, with working with a lot of different partners. And so these data come from our CNHP scientists working in the field, but also from primarily this data set. It's Colorado Parks and Wildlife, university level research, and published and unpublished reports, and specimen data from museums and herbaria. And there is an important mammal that was documented up at Rollins Pass historically, the wolverine. And the wolverine has a home range of like 100 square miles, and they can travel 15 miles in a day. So you can imagine how it's a little harder to just put a dot on a map for a wolverine. But that's how information for those animals are reflected in the data that when we're looking at a site like this. So let's take a closer look, and then I want to also show you some photographs of these plants. We'll start. I'm a botanist, so we'll start with the plants. There's a pretty good list here of rare plants that have been documented up in the Rollins Pass area. And as I pointed out, if you take a look at the global and state ranks, you can see that several of them are significant on a global level, and are the asterisk here indicates that these are endemic to Colorado, not known from anywhere else in the world but Colorado. And again, I can't see my whole slide here. So, and then the plus are those taxa that have been included in our state wildlife action plan and our U.S. Forest Service sensitive species. So they're recognized as being significant by the Colorado Natural Heritage Program, as well as the state and the Forest Service. The occurrence rank, for each dot on the map, or each record for these plants, we assign what is called an element occurrence rank. And these basically typically just work like A, B, C, and D, like from school days, of A being excellent, B good, C fair, and D poor. Now an E means there is, it's basically insufficient information to assign a rank. We just know that it's there or extant. So you can really start to get a feel as we look through these data for Rollins Pass, not only that these plants are found there, but how are they doing? And looking at this column that showing these occurrence ranks, you can see like, well, we kind of don't know, or it's a historical record from last observed in 1919. So it makes you, leaves you wondering, is it still there? Do we need more field surveys? that sort of thing. But this just shows you a list of what has been documented to date in terms of rare plants up at Rollins Pass. And just to show you a few photos of some of these anyway, I don't have photographs of all of them, but this is the clawless graba, G2S2, endemic to Colorado, a beautiful wildflower in the mustard family. And there the same plant in fruit and its habitat, the alpine tundra, rocky alpine tundra. Here's the Gray's Peak Draba, another closely related species in the mustard family, also endemic to Colorado, and a close-up of its habitat. The Rocky Mountain columbine has been documented up in the Rollins Pass area. This one is also endemic to Colorado, but found in a few more locations than the Draba species. And it really looks quite a bit like our Colorado columbine that people are so familiar with, our state flower, but just quite a bit smaller. And it has these little hooked spurs on the back of the flower here. So that's how you might be out and see that, the local folks. This is a photo of Patterson's wormwood and the habitat up at Rollins Pass. This is Artemisia pattersonii. This is a plant that's closely related to our sagebrush species, but it's more of an herbaceous plant found up in the alpine that is not endemic to Colorado, but is considered to be state imperiled with the S2 rank, as well as globally vulnerable. The grassy slope sedge is also, it's not endemic to Colorado, but it's not found in very many more areas given its G3, S3 ranking. The rock sandwort is G5S2. So this is a globally common species known from a circumpolar distribution that just comes down into Colorado. So this plant is considered to be rare in the state. As well as the mountain bladder fern, globally common, state rare, known from the Rollins Pass area in rocky outcrops. Let's look at the rare animals at Rollins Pass. Just taking a quick look at the list: the boreal toad, northern leopard frog, boreal owl, Colorado River cutthroat trout, greenback cutthroat trout, and the wolverine. The rank, you might notice right away that we have suddenly a T1 and a T3 and T. These are, you can think of it as a G1 and a G3, but these are for the subspecies. It's the trinomial rank. So you'll see as we go through the slides that show the individuals. All of these records for the animals are historical. These are documented more than 20 years ago, except for the boreal owl that was last observed in 2005. So we have not seen the wolverine up in the Rollins Pass area since 1973. The wolverine was last observed in Colorado in 1996. So before long, we might be looking at this being moved to an SH, or just historically known from Colorado. All of these animals do have recognition at a state level, unlike the plants, either state endangered, state species of concern, or state threatened. These first 4 are U.S. Forest Service sensitive species, and the greenback cutthroat trout is the only species that I'm going to talk about for the whole Rollins Pass area that is actually listed on the endangered species list. It's listed as threatened, and all of the species are included in our state wildlife action plan. So let's take a look at some of the pictures of the animals. The boreal toad, this is a southern Rocky Mountain population of the toad. So there are more populations of the boreal toad. That's why you see the T1 on the rank, but it's very, very rare and thought to be, it's declining quite a bit here in Colorado. It's identified by that bumpy brown skin and the white stripe down the back. Our biologists did have a chance to get out in the field and look for the boreal toad in 2007 at Rollins Pass. So these are a couple pictures from our zoologist, Brad Lambert, who focuses on the boreal toad, taken up in the Rollins Pass area sites. They were scoping out for the boreal toad, but unfortunately they did not find them. The northern leopard frog is also considered to be state vulnerable, largely because also the decline, like the boreal toad, there's just been a lot of habitat loss. And there is a fungus that is infecting a lot of the amphibian populations called the chytrid fungus that's causing them to disappear. The boreal owl, as I mentioned, is a G5S2 species known from the area. My husband, Arvind, who works for the Colorado Bird Conservancy, I'm sure he'll tell you that there are a lot of other bird species that are potentially of concern in this area. Arvind has worked with a team of ornithologists to document the steep decline we're seeing in all birds these days. And so there may be a lot more that should be on our radar for Rollins Pass. But right now, just with the data we have in our heritage program database, the boreal owl is the only bird species that shows up on our list. The Colorado River cutthroat trout, this variety is a T3S3. And the greenback cutthroat, again, this is the only species that I'll be talking about tonight that is actually listed on the endangered species list. This species was thought to be extinct, but then it was discovered, and they are working on some new population introduction sites in Colorado. So, that's another thing to point out, that the fact that the greenback cutthroat trout has been documented up in the Rollins Pass area, even though it's only historically known, it could potentially be a suitable reintroduction site. And really the same goes for the wolverine. Wouldn't it be amazing to see one of these guys running through the landscape up there? Only historically known from the Rollins Pass area. Last documented in, I think it was 73, but there are 33 locations for the wolverine in Colorado. And so again, that could be a suitable reintroduction site if that was something that was, started to be discussed. The rare invertebrates, we have the bumblebee, western bumblebee, a couple of different butterflies, stonefly, and some mollusks. And again, the we don't know a lot about the quality of these occurrences. We just know that these species have been documented in the area. They are not terribly of global concern, but they are considered to be state imperiled with this high state rank. And they are all these are included in that state wildlife action plan, the ones with the plus, and these mollusks. So again, a few photographs. The western bumblebee, considered to be a G4S3 at this time. But again, this is, a lot of our pollinators we're finding to be in decline. And that's one of the things that's really a beauty of our ranks is as soon as the information becomes available, we can change these G and S ranks to reflect what is known about the scientific distribution of these species and how threatened they are, how rare they are. We don't have to go through like a whole process with the Endangered Species Act or that sort of thing. We just reflect. We'd go ahead and just make that rank change in our database. The Theano alpine butterfly, again, globally common, state rare. And the Rocky Mountain Arctic Judah, G4S1. I thought maybe this one was state rare because it might be kind of inconspicuous just with the not really bright coloration. But, be great to just get more field observations of this one. Well, let's take a look at the plant communities found up at Rollins Pass. And I know this might seem like a lot to take in, but again, we're just talking about a combination of plant species that are found in a repeating pattern on the landscape, just like a spruce fir forest or a pinyon juniper woodland. But these plant communities, here's their common name, different types of shrublands and forests, alpine wetlands. And for these plant communities, we really have a lot better information. First of all, just observed much more recently, very high quality rankings. I forgot to say, this means 6A means we've got 6 occurrences of the alpine wetlands. I hope that wasn't confusing. And for the riparian willow cars, 5 A ranked occurrences and 2 B ranked occurrences. A couple of examples of communities that are considered to be endemic to Colorado. Again, just referring to our NatureServe partners to find out if others have these examples of these communities in their area. And to not go too overboard here, but here's the scientific name of these plant communities. So again, they're just communities made up of a specific combination of plant species. So here's an example of a dwarf birch sphagnum shrubland. So sphagnum is a peat moss, and this is ranked G2S2. It's a globally imperiled plant community. So here's the dwarf birch, and here's the sphagnum. And this is not the community, of course. We're talking about, yes, these two are found together, but we're also seeing a lot of other plants. Here's the Cornus canadensis, a type of dogwood species. And there's a lot of diversity of plants, animals, insects found with these in these plant communities and that are associated with these communities. So we're looking for this repeating pattern on the landscape. Here's the dwarf birch sphagnum shrubland, really just an excellent example of this plant community, an A ranked occurrence that it's really high quality. And here's an example of a willow and a type of grass called Calamagrostis canadensis, a wet shrubland, montane willow car. An example of an aspen alder riparian forest found up at Rollins Pass. Another example of a community up at Rollins Pass is the Engelmann spruce with white marsh marigold. This is considered to be a globally vulnerable, state imperiled plant community. And that's the marsh marigold in the photograph. Subalpine riparian area dominated by a plain leaf willow and a carex species, Carex utriculata. And alpine wetlands dominated by Eleocris quinciflora, a type of sedge. This is globally common, G4, S4 state common, but what is significant about this community is the very, very high quality. And we do document the specific locations of those plant communities with our data sets as well. So just a couple of final thoughts. There sure are a lot of interesting plants, animals, and plant communities to be found up at Rollins Pass, and surely there are more to be found. The quality of the occurrences ranges from poor or unknown to excellent. There are a lot of historical records that need to be updated. So of the 72 records of plants, animals, and plant communities up at Rollins Pass, 37% of them are only known from historical documentation. And when I say historical, I'm talking about just more than 20 years. Of course, Travis and Jason were talking about a much longer time frame when they were talking about the history of the area. But what we're getting at there of not wanting to have our data be more than 20 years old or calling it historical at that time is it becomes old enough where you may not want to be really making any sort of conservation-based decisions on those data. You'd want to have more current data. Field surveys, monitoring, field guides, classes, and et cetera would improve our understanding of the area. I'd love to see a bio blitz happen up in the Rollins Pass area. That's where you get a multidisciplinary team of scientists together and just do an intensive effort just over a short period of time, typically, to really identify what you can in terms of all the plants and animals that are found in an area. And then, protection and management issues really need to be identified and addressed. This goes beyond the scope of my talk tonight because I do want to leave time for questions and discussion. But the Rollins Pass area, as I mentioned, it's very complex land ownership patterns with a lot of private inholdings. And it's today experiencing pretty intensive recreational uses. And just with our growing population in Colorado, there's just a lot of pressures on this area, not to mention climate change. And to have some collaborative conservation planning and best management practices, for example, to address these would really be an important next step to take in this area. So I hope that my presentation tonight has really helped to help you understand how we take a global perspective to look at any place on the ground to really have a better understanding of the significance of an area such as the Rollins Pass area, which I've just learned so much putting this presentation together for you all tonight, and I'm just convinced that this is just a gorgeous and really significant area. As I said, we learned a lot about the historical and anthropogenic, or excuse me, anthropological significance of this area last week, and it really just is quite spectacular. So with that, I would be happy to take your comments and questions